Hi everyone, welcome to Coach's Corner Part 2 with me, Coach Sergio. Hopefully everyone's safe out there, and we're happy that you're here to join us. Coach Brian was on last week, and he explained how to clean your clubs and things like that. And so I'm going to take that and run with it and kind of go over maybe if you go to the golf course, what's in your golf bag. Maybe you have questions, so start to think about things that you might find in a golf bag. We'll kind of go over that, and then also you might ask, why is there so many? We'll kind of go over why there's so many golf clubs in your bag, what each one does, things of that sort. So welcome. Again, I'm Coach Sergio. I've been I'm a coach at the First Tee for about 5-6 years now, and I started as a participant back in 2005. So First Tee opened in 2004. Monterey County opened in 2004, and I started right after with the program as I was about 10 or 11 years old. So I've been around this program for, more than half of my life. So, it means a lot to me. And I like to kind of, I grew up playing golf. I golfed when I was 11, and I golfed uh, junior high school. I got a scholarship to play at San Jose State out of college or out of high school. So I've been around the game. I love the game, and I hope to pay it forward to others, um, as I did. So a little bit about me, a little bit more about me. Like I said, I'm a coach at the First Tee. I also caddy at a course in Pebble Beach called Cypress Point Golf Club. Um, and yeah, so I'm glad you're here, and hopefully, if you have any questions, we can answer some questions as well. Um, Appreciate everyone joining. So we'll kind of get started. So I have my golf bag here. As you can see, there's a lot of clubs. We have the bigger ones, a lot that look the same, and we'll kind of go over why some of them look the same. You might think they're the same. We'll kind of go over that. I'll kind of lift it up for you, what it look like. Pretty heavy. When I do work at Cypress, I am a caddy, and that's, if you ever watch golf, someone that carries the clubs on TV for the person playing. So these can get heavy, and we'll kind of go over what else is in here to make it that makes it so heavy. Um, yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about one of the core values today, which I chose judgment, because I believe you're making a choice every second of your life. So it's important to develop that judgment. And when we talk about judgment, having good judgment, and maybe the differences between a bad judgment and good judgment in your life. When you're on the golf course, from that first shot to the last, you're making a decision. Things are happening. The wind, your ball. You might have a tree. You might not have a good lie, which is where your ball's in the long grass or short grass. You might have to hit over the water. You might choose to go to the left. There's a lot of choices that you have to make, and it's just like life. After you make the choice, you kind of look back and you figure out if that was the best choice or not. That's why golf is such like life. You're making a choice, you kind of live with that choice, and you move on. You hit your golf ball, you're supposed to go find it and hit it from there. You can't go back, but we can learn from every shot. So let's get into it. Like I said, I have my set here. We'll kind of start, we'll go from maybe the shortest to the longest club in my golf bag. And what I mean by that is distance. So if I imagine I take the same swing with my golf club, okay, if I hit this wedge right here, which is what we'll call wedges, versus if I hit this club, which you might be more familiar with as a driver. I'll take this off. It's a driver. It's the big one. The driver will tend to go farther, so we'll go from there. We'll go from our shortest to our longest club. But let's talk about wedges. So wedges, as you can see here, it's kind of cool on the camera. You're going to be able to see maybe let's see if you can kind of tell the angle of this golf club. Um, as you can see, it's pretty lofted. All right. So I mean, maybe you could take a guess of what this is for, but if you're gonna hit a golf ball, grab a golf ball. Here we go. We put it next to the golf ball. You can see that angle. This is gonna hit the ball. Ball's gonna go up. So this club is mostly for short shots, and it kind of you use this around the green, the putting green, when you're in the rough to chip. Okay, it's about chips like a little swing, but we use that to chip. As you can see, it has, as like I see, I can either clean my clubs, but this actually helps. You can see where you hit the ball right there in the center. Um, but yeah, we use this to chip, and like I said, it gets it going. So instead of using, it's kind of like a putting stroke or chip, but you're using this club. It gets your ball in the air. Um, and actually, the cool part about that club is when you hit it and the ball goes in the air, it hits the green, and it can actually create some spin on your ball like that. Okay, and that's what allows it to stop. Um, but the wedges actually, when you grab one, you'll what you'll feel is it's the shortest club in your. It's one of the shortest clubs in your golf bag. Okay, so as I talk about it going from, we go from shortest to longest to the driver. Actually, every club tends to get a little bit longer. Okay, but fun fact, if you're watching, professional golf right now, there's a golfer named Bryson DeChambeau who actually uses same length clubs. So he'll use the length of a 7 iron, I believe, or maybe his 6 iron. But he makes every club the same length. That isn't typical, as you'd find as you go up, the club tends to get longer. All right, so those are your wedges. They kind of look like the next club you'll see, but the way that you describe wedges and you'll see the difference is if you look right here, hopefully you can see that 60. There's a 60 right here. What that tells you is how many degrees this club has. So you might hear someone say, can you grab me a 60, as opposed to, I have another wedge here. Kind of looks the same. You see that angle? But you'll see the difference is that there's a 50. This one says 54. Okay, and believe it or not, that actually makes a difference in how far you hit it. If I take the same swing, the 60 is actually going to go shorter than the 54, but you can get a little bit more height on the 60. So those are called wedges. All right, so remember those wedges. Then we move on to the next club, and we're going to get an iron. Okay, we call these irons. And I'll grab a couple different ones. And as you can see from the looks of it, is they look, oh, here we go. They look exactly the same. Even if I do this, even if I angle them, you might see a slight difference, but not much on the clubs. It's about the same angle. So you'll see, why do you have, you might think, why do we have the same club? Well, actually, I'm going to flip it over and you'll be able to kind of tell, hopefully. This one is a 9 and this one is a 7. Although they look the same, there's actually a slight difference. It's kind of like the wedges. Even though these are called 9 and 7, they actually have degrees, just like the wedges. And the 9 iron has more degrees than the 7 does. So when we hit a 9 and we hit a 7, it'll be a slight difference in yards. And what I mean by yards is, in golf, that's how you figure out how far your ball goes. So yards, you could kind of do, if you go back to school, there's 3 feet in the yard. So in golf, that's about, one stride. So my 7 iron is going to go about, for me, it goes about 15 to 20 yards farther than my 9 iron. And we'll get into more about why, why you choose, why you hit one and why you don't hit, or why you hit the other in a little bit. But yeah, so these are about the same. Hey, look, you'll carry about a 9 to about a 4, maybe even a 3 if you like, iron, and those depends on the yards that you have. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Next, I don't have my hybrid with me, but I'm going to kind of show you. I'll kind of explain what a hybrid is through this demonstration, so you can kind of understand what it's like. So a hybrid will kind of look like this, even though this is a 3-wood. Okay. But a hybrid would be cut in half. You cut it about in half, and it would look kind of like this. Kind of skinny, but it still looks like a wood, and it has that kind of face. But what that hybrid is, and if you understand what the word hybrid means, it's kind of a mixture of two things. And what it's a mix of is an iron and a wood, and that creates a hybrid. Um, but we can I can use this wood to kind of explain it. But with the hybrid, it's kind of, when you have a 3 iron, as I just showed you, those are kind of harder to hit. So some people choose to buy a hybrid, and that gets it out of the rough or gets it out of the fairway, gets it a little easier than if you would the skinny 3 iron. I can kind of show you what I mean by that, as opposed to like the 7 and the 9. As you can see, the angle's pretty straight on there. And if you look at from here, let's see if I can get a good angle for you. Pretty skinny all around. So these are a little harder to hit. They do make different kinds of clubs. So these are called blades. So these are for probably more advanced golfer. You might find some cavity backs or some bigger irons that when you first start you'll use. But yeah, 3 iron all around those is one of the tougher clubs to hit. So that's why you can get a hybrid. After the hybrid, we have what's called a wood. And that's what I was showing you before. You might think, hey, that looks like a driver. It does. You can kind of think of it like a mini driver. And it's kind of mine's kind of dinged up, but that's because it's my trusty one and I've used this for a long time. Um, but you kind of, I just used these clubs yesterday, but this is kind of what a 3 wood looks like. And you'll notice the change in this is that there's a graphite shaft, we'll call it, and the irons have a steel. Well, depending on your level, if you're first starting out, you might want to stick to graphite for everything, not just your woods and driver, your irons as well. But yeah, so you have the 3 wood here, and it looks kind of like a driver. But what this is let's say there's a long hole and I hit, have a long distance away. Instead of hitting my driver, which is tough to hit off the ground, they made these that are called woods. You might look and be like, that's not a wood. There's no wood on there. Well, back in the day, the clubs, when they first started golf, were made out of wood. So I think they just carry that name over to these. Sometimes people call them metals, 3 metal. You might get a 5 metal, but I mean, most people call them woods. Now, after that is probably everyone's favorite to hit if you maybe played golf a couple times, or even if you played a long time, is the driver. As you can see, it's about, look at how big that thing is, just like that. Okay, also has a graphite shaft. Okay, and it's a little different, but it's kind of what it looks like. And now, as you can kind of see, that number right here, let me flip it over so you can kind of see it. If you see that number right there, it says 8.5. Okay, now it doesn't say 85, it says 8.5. I don't know if you can see the point, but it's an 8.5. What that's telling you is it's 8.5 degrees. So we talked about the wedges having degrees. This driver has degrees as well, and this one's an 8.5. You would probably find a driver from anywhere to 7 to about, let's say, they'll make 12s, 11s for the beginners or people that can't get the ball up in the air. You might have about 11 or 12. There's no better, or it's just kind of what fits you. And that's kind of where we get to with the clubs is, if you might ask me, where do I get clubs or which club should I get? Now, I would say actually my first pair of clubs was a ladies set, and I was about 11 or 12. And the reason I had a ladies set, they were a little bit more bendy. And when I mean ladies, the shaft is a little bit more bendy, so I was using that, or you could call it maybe a junior shaft. So I was using those, and they weren't necessarily nice or expensive, because my parents weren't sure if I wanted to play golf or if that was the choice, because golf clubs are expensive. So they wanted to see that's my biggest, if any parents are watching, that's kind of my best advice to give you is don't rush out to get them maybe the nicest, newest clubs. At our first tee, you can come over and I'm sure we can help them earn some clubs that they can use. But just once you see that they're going to put that effort, put that dedication to the game, then you can go on and buy them that new equipment that, definitely makes a difference. But at first I would just stick to, something that's inexpensive and that, so they can show you that they want to play this game. But yeah, so one of the rules about golf is you can have 14 clubs. I forgot one club, my favorite club too, is a putter. Now, take that. So you can have head covers on the driver, the 3 wood, and your putter. This is so you can make maybe some come with a cool design, things like that. But this is just to protect your clubs so they don't bang each other and or make noise and stuff like that. But now here's the putter. What you'll see here is it's pretty flat. Okay, if I put the ball right here, you can kind of see it's pretty flat. And you might say it has 0 degrees. Well, actually, putters have about 2 to 4 degrees. I believe it's a 4. Um, actually, here it's hard to tell, but it does. Um, but this is meant to be used on the putting green. And if you've never played golf, the putting green is where you would find the golf flag, and that's where it kind of goes in the hole. And that leads me to my next question. As I got a question, it says, "What club is your favorite and why?" And my favorite club is actually a good timing with my putter. Okay, I've gone through a lot of putters, but the putter in general is my favorite. As in, that's when you decide things. I'm pretty competitive, and there's people that hit the ball far. There's people that don't hit it far. But when you get on that green, and the funny thing about golf is the putt this far from here to the hole is just as much as a drive you hit 300 yards. So if it's tough to get that ball in the hole, it's that's where you would start. But that's my putter. As you watch TV, you watch celebrations, they'll happen on the green. You have to make that long putt, that short putt, or that important putt to win. So, that's why I always believed that my putter was my favorite, and a lot of good memories with it. But yeah, as far as where you put, thanks for the question there. If anyone else has any questions, feel free to, ask, ask away, and we can discuss them. But as far as where you put the clubs, it's personal preference. I tend to put the wedges down here and the irons, and then as you go up, you have them towards the back, and I can kind of show you just like that, right there, perfect. See that? So wedges, irons, and then driver woods on top. Um, but yeah, that's kind of a rundown through the clubs. The rule is you can have you can't have any more than 14. So you can have 14 clubs if you like. And that's all preference up to you. Maybe some people have 4 wedges, some people have hybrids, more woods. It's personal preference. And the cool thing about golf is when you're out there and we're talking about judgment making decisions, and we'll get into the yards in a little bit, is you get to use that club, any club you want at any time. Obviously, if you're on the putting green, you want to try to use a putter to show respect to the ground. You're not making any dents, but there are times where there's professionals that have used a wedge to chip it, but that's only if there's something in the way or they have a really hard shot. Typically, use a putter. But anywhere else, maybe off the green, anywhere you can think of, you can use any club. So we talked about judgment, and I'm sure you've heard about self-management. Managing. So when you're out there, there's no coach. The only person out there is you, and you're making those choices on what club to hit. But let's get a little bit into what's in the actual golf bag that makes it so heavy. So kind of your essentials, we'll kind of go through that and have kind of a list. When I would play tournaments, so I've probably played over 100 golf tournaments, in junior golf and after high school, college, and amateur events. Um, is is that you got to be prepared, because once you're out there, you can't go get golf balls or a glove or anything. You got to be prepared when you go out there, because you never know what's going to happen. So I'll kind of run you through it. So kind of a tradition I had is Coach Brian showed you how to clean clubs last week. Is I would always clean my clubs the night before, just kind of get me in that mindset, and I'd pack my bag, make sure everything's ready. But we'll kind of show you what mental thing I went through to make sure I had everything in here. Um, Usually find a lot of pockets in here. I can kind of show you, lift it up, kind of show you. There's a lot of pockets as you go in here that have room for everything. Um, but we'll kind of start with the first couple things you'll need. The first is obviously a golf ball. Okay, so I got a golf ball here. And you can see it's a TaylorMade 2. All right, and it has a line. Let's see if you can see it right there. Has a line. Well, something that we would go through, if I could find my trusty Sharpie, where did I put it? Let me look through my golf bag. Okay, so here is a golf ball actually I found marked. So I don't have to mark one, but something I always did before I went and made sure I had golf balls is I would mark my golf ball. So I would actually put a line on that right here with a red Sharpie, and I would actually mark a little triangle over the number. Okay, just like that. And you ask me, why do you write on your golf ball? Well, what happened is before you start playing, and you have usually playing in a group of other people, before you start playing, you announce what kind of golf ball you're playing, and that's so when you hit down there, let's say you're hitting over a hill, so you can't see where you're hitting. I hit my ball, and then another person, let's say, hit a pretty similar shot. How are you gonna know which one's yours? If let's say that I say I have a tailor-made five, as you can see there, and then they come up and say, well, I have a tailor-made five. Well, in case that ever happens, or maybe someone on the golf course that hit a bad shot to your hole had the same golf ball. Well, this is just a way to identify it. So you always want to make sure you write an identifying mark so you know it's yours. So that way, maybe you hit your ball in the trees, or maybe you hit yourself in the long grass, and they're helping you look. You can say, I'm looking for this ball, because trust me, you're going to find other people's ball that they couldn't find. So you want to make sure you mark it. So you need golf ball, okay? And they make millions. Kind of show you cool ones that you might like if you're starting out. There's a pink ball you can use, maybe a highlighter ball. But typically I use a white ball. But yeah, you need a golf ball. Okay. Then next is you're gonna need this guy right here. All right, and this is actually pretty important because when you use that driver, you want to tee up your ball. So we call this a tee, okay? Just like the letter T, but it's spelled T-E-E. We use this T, and just like in our name first tee. We use a T. When you use a T, what that helps with is it's going to go, you're going to stick it in the ground, and your ball's actually going to go right up there, just like that, okay? And then you can hit it. Now, you can have your tee high, or you can have your tee pretty just above the grass, just depending on the shot you're going to hit. Maybe, when you hit a driver, you want to have that thing pretty high because that club is pretty high. Um, and so you need a tee for that. And another little thing you can use a tee for is if you hit your ball really high on a putting green, okay, you're going to make a mark, and you can actually fix it with the tee just like that. You push in, and make it flat. And when we get back to the golf course and we have more of these, we'll show you kind of how you do that. But you need a tee, okay. Another thing you can have that'll help is a glove. All right, this is one of my favorite gloves, blue glove. Just goes on right here. And a little fun fact, I'm not sure how the camera is for you, but a little fun fact is if you're a right-handed golfer like I am, you typically wear it on your left hand. Okay, just like that. Okay, it's actually going on my left hand. So if I hold the golf club, okay, it's on my left. If I'm a right-handed golfer, you're actually going to put the glove on your right hand. Okay, typically you use one glove. You don't have to use a glove. Some people actually use two gloves if you want, but that's also preference to you. And I always carry an extra glove because you might get sweaty, depends who you are, and you can switch it out. But you have a glove. Another thing that you'll probably find in here is a ball marker. Okay, now I got a quarter. Okay, maybe you'd find your favorite year. You can find that you can even use a marker that has a design, some golf courses, things like that. That what you use this for is when you're on the putting green and maybe your ball has some dirt on it, or your ball's in front of someone else so they don't hit yours. You put this down, you keep this in your pocket, put it down, pick it up, clean it, or hold it until they go, and then you put the ball back and pick up the markers. You always want to have one of these. Let's see, we got a question here. Top three favorite golfers while growing up. That's a good one. Um, you know, I would say number one, as far as on the golf course, Tiger Woods. Um, it, and not because he was necessarily my favorite, but he made golf, he brought it on the map for most people. He's the reason why most of the kids uh, growing up during my age played golf. He was always on TV. He was always winning, and golf is in a better place when Tiger's around. Um, so he was a big part, and that's one. I would say a couple others that come to mind. Um, it's a good question. Thanks for that question. There's a lot. I'm really trying to think. I will say this. I can't really think of more, but I will say if you're interested in golf and you start golfing a little bit in high school, um, always look to opportunities where you can be a standard bearer. That's where you actually get to walk inside where the pros inside the ropes. They rope it off so that the no fans can go, in their area, and that's where they play. That's where they walk. Well, as a kid, you can go and you can volunteer and you carry a sign that has the professional score, and that was probably my favorite experiences. You really get to know these golfers because you get to watch what they do, the shots they hit, the choices they make. And sometimes if you're lucky, they'll talk to you, and then it's very nice. And then at the end, you get a signed golf ball, which if you've done it before, you probably have a lot. But that's what comes to my mind is when I come think about favorite golfers. I had Hunter Mahan. He was good. I saw Tiger Woods in person. That was cool. And a lot of my friends have gotten a lot of great professionals in their group. I actually volunteered with Coach Brian at the U.S. Open in Pebble, 2020 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, and I actually was in charge of running it. And Coach Brian was a huge help in running it. And we got all the kids to volunteer and do standard bearers. So the whole time they wanted Tiger, they wanted Jordan Spieth, they wanted all these golfers, so they could carry the sign. They can, maybe have a chance to talk to them, shake their hand, things like that. So that was awesome. So back to the bag. So I got my glove, my golf ball, my tee, and my ball marker. Another trusty thing you might have, you don't have to have it, but we'll get into why we're talking about a little bit about yards, is a rangefinder. Okay, they all come different. But what that is so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this button right on the top. I'm gonna point, and it has a little circle on the screen. You can't see it, but what it does is if I see the flag, I can scope out the flag, press the button, and it'll actually tell me exactly how far away I am from where I'm standing to the hole. Now, why that's important is if you look at when we're looking at our clubs and you saw so many, okay, they all have different uses. Now, to try to keep it simple for you is if I have 100 yards for me, and like we always talk about preference and judgment, my club that goes 100 might not be the club that goes 100 for you. So that's something that you work on the driving range, trying to figure out how far your clubs go. But if I use that laser and I laser it and it's 100 yards, typically that's going to be my 54. Okay, and that's my full swing. So take a full swing, 54. That's how far that goes. Okay, so you might find the wind or maybe you're in the longer grass, but typically if I have 100, that's how far I would hit. Um, and maybe my 7 iron goes about 165, 170 for me. Um, so that's how you kind of use those yards to figure out what club you're going to hit. These are expensive, but I suggest learning the old-fashioned way, which is step it out, and which we'll learn, I'm sure, in another coach's corner is you step it out and you figure out how far you are. You can use yardage markers, which are on the golf course. Sometimes you'll find them on the ground. Sometimes you'll find posts that tell you how far you are. And we'll probably learn that later on. But yeah, you'll find that. Some things that I might not have with me, but you want to have is a towel. Actually, I have a towel just like Coach Brian. He used a towel to clean his clubs. Um, and when you're on the golf course after you hit that shot, you have the dirt and you want to clean it. So and you also have a brush, which I'm sure Coach Brian showed you. You can carry those on your bag. But you always want to before a tournament. I'd make sure I have water. I had a jacket ready in case it got cold, kind of rained. Um, I had a first aid. You never know if you need a blister or anything like that. But pretty much you want to just come prepared. Come prepared for anything. Trying to think of anything else that I would have. Maybe a big one, which I think it's not with me at this moment, but a rules of golf, and it's just a little book. Well, it's not actually a little. It's a little book, but it has a lot of pages on the rules of golf. The best thing you can do is learn them and have the rules of golf there as a backup. But um, you want to, there's rules that you might face out on the golf course, and as much as everyone think of rules as a bad thing, there's actually a lot of rules in golf that can benefit you if you learn them. One that you might run into is if your ball's on the concrete, which we call the cart path. You don't want to, let's say you got a new club and you don't want to hit it off of there unless you had to, you're able to, but you get free relief where it's wherever you're nearest to point to where you won't be standing on that or your ball won't be on that concrete, and you get to move it. So it's always important to have that just as a backup, the rules of golf in your golf bag. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of things that we'll find on here. Once you have all those clubs and all that stuff in your bag, you're set. And maybe if you've never gone out and golfed before, a little bit of what you can do is you can ask. There's a lot of golf courses. If you really want to get into, you look around. There's public and there's private courses. The difference is a public course, anyone can go and they have different prices. So I'd suggest you looking at which public courses are available because there are some private courses where you need a membership or you need to have some status there to be able to play. So I'm sure you can look those up, give them a call, um, and check it out. If you go to the driving range, you'll go to a place called the Pro Shop, and that's where they'll give you prices, on maybe if you're looking for new clubs or you're looking for shoes, any equipment, or if you want to go on the golf course, you want to go to the driving range. That's what you'll do is you go there and they'll give you the prices and you kind of go from there. Um, but yeah, so if we get a little bit more into, you know, next time about the distances and things like that, so you can kind of learn the clubs. But those are kind of your basics. I'm pretty excited that there's more golfers. Obviously we're in the situation, but golf course is somewhere where they've allowed you, some places to allowed you to go, as long as you're practicing your social distancing and things like that. I suggest going out on the range and maybe trying your local golf course and hitting some swings. Um, like I said, if you need some clubs, I wouldn't buy any, expensive clubs. So I go out, maybe you can actually find them maybe at a garage sale, things like that, and just get familiar with them. Um, yeah, um, I've gone through a lot of clubs in my days, and I've had so many that I've used. So I'm always changing clubs, things like that. Yeah, if anyone else has a question, we can ask any questions now. We'll see if they do. Um, let's see, my favorite club, favorite golfers. Some of the equipment you might see. I'll give you some names if you're maybe not familiar with it. Fun fact: my hat is a Nike hat. They actually don't make it. You'll find equipment, but they actually don't make equipment now. They just make apparel, which is like clothing, shoes, things like that. Um, but some things some clubs, some brands to look for, golf brands, Titleist, some Callaways, TaylorMade. Man, there's a lot. Adams. It's kind of personal preference. If we talk about fitting, it's another step. Like I said, once you really get into golf, it's another step where you can go and actually get fitted, where they let you hit a bunch of clubs, different clubs, and they give you numbers on maybe what goes the farthest, which one you hit better, things like that, and they actually can tell you, what's best for you. Um, it is a little pricey, but sometimes they offer for free. It just depends on where you go. But that's another step that you can take in finding out, what clubs are right for you. Me, I've always kind of, tried them out. For me, it's like a feel thing. Um, I hit them, I looked at them, and for me, if it was a lot about how it looked. If it looked good, and felt good, those are the ones I stuck to. But they make a lot of a lot of shapes, a lot of different clubs, things like that, that you can use. Yeah. Well, let's see if we have any more questions today. Um, I think we got another question, and it's top three courses I've played. Wow, that's a good one too. I've probably played over 200, 250 golf courses. The cool thing is that there's a golf course probably near where you live, but there's a golf courses all over, everywhere. But for me, that I've played, number one is probably Cypress Point, where I was a caddy as well. That is a private course, but It's hidden in Pebble Beach, California. It's a 17-mile drive. Um, it's a very exclusive course, so I was blessed in high school. Our high school golf coach had built relationships like we talk about in the first tee, as a golfer and person, and he knew someone, and they would allow us to go on the golf course there and play. If you were in the top six of our high school golf team, we actually had to play Cypress Point and Pebble Beach, which you may have heard of. But Cypress is definitely one of my favorites. Another one that I played was down in Palm Springs, and it was called TPC or PGA West. Sorry, PGA West, and there's a bunch of courses there, but there is a stadium course that is about seven. It's a really long golf course, and they played. They used to do Q school there, and they play a tournament. I'm not sure what it's called now on the tour, but they play a tournament, and that was a fun trip and challenging course. Played a couple golf tournaments there. That one's fun. And then my third favorite, there's a lot. Um, I really like the scenic, courses along the water, things like that, as well. Man, I've played the shore at Monterey Peninsula Country Club, which is also nice. They play the AT&T there, along with Pebble Beach and Spyglass. That's one of my favorites as well. It's right on the water. But like I said, there's so many I can't even think of more. But they make courses different shapes and sizes. Some are longer, some are shorter. Things like that. There's a lot of choices you have to make on a golf course, and that's when we talk about judgment. Um, and we'll kind of connect it to life. Is you have a decision to make, and it's just like in golf. Should I go over the water? Should I hit to the left of the water? Play it safe. The same thing we do in life. We make choices, and once you hit that golf ball, it can't. There's no going back to it, to that shot again. So you try to learn after every step, and that's why at the first tee we teach judgment, and showing good judgment. You're probably going to make mistakes when you're playing golf, but like I said, if we try to think about it and learn from each shot, you'll get better each day. Just like life, um, things like that. But yeah, I thanks for everyone for joining, and I look forward to the next Coach's Corner. I can't wait to see who's on next. And we'll go more in depth in another episode. I'll be back on, and we'll hopefully be at the golf course. I can show you some cool shots and some cool things. Thanks everyone for the questions, and thanks for joining. Stay safe out there, everybody. Have a good one.